You are hereby ordered for induction into the Armed Forces of the United States and to report to Local Board Number 37 on February the 7th, 1966 at 6:45 a.m. for forwarding to an Armed Forces induction station. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, how many of you have ever received a document as emphatic as this one? I had exactly 13 days to report for active duty into the United States Army and leave my family behind for 2 years. This evening, I want to share with you a personal opportunity, a personal challenge, and a personal crisis. I also want to share how I got through them in hopes that maybe, just maybe, something I did could help some of you as well. I was only 19 years old when I received this letter. I was working full-time, going to school at night, and was engaged to be married. Now, how does a 19-year-old kid handle something like that? Years later, after having a family of my own, I lived up near Athens, Georgia, and I received a very distressing phone call from my mother. She called to tell me that my younger brother Tom had hung himself. How does a person deal with something that catastrophic? Then, just a little over a year ago, I found my own mortality challenged as I lay flat on my back on a hospital gurney, being wheeled into an operating room, accompanied by 2 doctors who had no idea what surgery they were going to perform until they opened me up. Granted, all 3 of these situations are different, but I got through them using the same 3 basic principles, and I want to share those with you this evening. First, I learned at a young age that I had to believe in something more powerful than myself, that I couldn't be the center of my own universe. And to this day, I believe that everyone ought to have something or someone in which they have undying faith and trust. I'm going to tell you, if you put yourself in the center of your own universe, you're going to be disappointed many times in your life. Next, you have to realistically understand what you're up against. Today's society sugarcoats everything. I believe that you have to strip away the camouflage. You have to get it down to the bare bones and understand what situation you're facing. You see, if you can't understand it, you'll never be able to accept it. And if you can't accept it, you'll never be able to get through it. And third, we have to make time our ally. So many times we go to business meetings or conventions and we say to ourselves, will this ever end? The time is crawling by. Now, I hope right now is not one of those times. Or we'll look at our watch and we'll say, wow, how did I get this late? Time is just whizzing by. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get our hands around that concept and apply it to whatever situation we are dealing with. Now, let me see if I can give you some examples. When I got my draft notice, I had to look at that as an opportunity. What was I going to do? I could run, but I couldn't hide. They would find me. So I had to take advantage of it. But I'll tell you this, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't look up there and say, get me through these 2 years. And speaking of time, you can't look at 2 years all in one piece. So I broke it down. The first 8 weeks of my military was basic training. So I didn't look a day past that. Next came my advanced training, which is radio operator school. I didn't look past that 8 weeks. And the balance of the 2 years, well, I broke it down in a similar fashion. Every situation that came up, I would deal with it. Maybe a month at a time, maybe a week at a time, maybe just a day at a time. It was anything I could do to combat the loneliness. Now, I think we would all agree that the phone call I received from my mother would definitely fall into the crisis category. And I can tell you firsthand, there hasn't been a day in my life that I didn't need spiritual guidance and comfort than at that very moment. And as far as time, it's like I told my mom, Mom, when the time comes when you can talk about Tom with a smile on your face instead of a tear in your eye, then I'll know that the sorrow has subsided and the healing has begun. Now, as far as my own challenge, the surgery, I think everybody in here that's ever had surgery knows that the challenge isn't the surgery, the challenge is the recovery. For weeks, I laid around with 4 tubes sticking out of my body. After those tubes were removed, I went through excruciating pain for several more weeks. And I almost fell off the wagon at that time because I looked up and I said, all right, here's the deal. Take me now or get me well because this just isn't working. It came down to dealing with it a day at a time. And sometimes an hour at a time, just enough to get through and to hang on. Last January, something happened that supported my methodology for how I dealt with these situations. You see, next to my family and my faith, the biggest thing in my life is my acting. And I wondered 2 things when I was lying in the hospital and at home trying to recover from this horrible surgery. 1, will I recover at all? And 2, if I do recover, will I ever be well enough to get back on stage? Well, my prayers are answered. I returned to the stage in a musical. Now, you've all heard the music, written by Charles Strauss. But it was the words that finally hit me right between the eyes by Martin Charnin. I'm going to share those lyrics with you right now. I want to see if you hear the same things I heard. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck in a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick out my chin and grin and say, the sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow, come what may. Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're only a day away. Madam Contest Master.